you're going to stand right here. So when you're moving your arm like this, your brain is sending a signal down to your muscles right here. I want you to move your arm as well. All right, so your brain is going to send a signal down to your muscles. And so it turns out that there is a nerve that's right here that runs up here that innervates these three fingers. And is close enough to the skin that we might be able to stimulate that, so that we can do is copy your brain signal that's going out to your hand and inject it into your hand so that your hand will move when your brain tells your hand to move. And so in a sense, she will take away your free will and you will no longer have any control over this hand, okay? You with me? All right, so I just need to hook you up. All right, so I'm going to find your ulnar nerve, which is probably right around here. You don't know what you're signing up for when you come up. So now I'm going to move away and I'm going to plug it into our human-to-human interface over here. Okay, so Sam wants you to squeeze your hand again. All right, do it again. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to hook you up over here so that you get the stimulus. It's going to feel a little bit weird at first. This is going to feel like you know, when you lose your free will and someone else becomes your agent, it does feel a bit strange. So I want you to relax your hand. All right, and Sam, you're with me. All right, so you're gonna squeeze. I'm not gonna turn it on yet, so go ahead and give it a squeeze. All right. So now, are you ready, Miguel?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, so I've turned it on. So go ahead and turn your hand. Do you feel that a little bit? Okay, do it again.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, so relax. No, hit it again. Okay. Oh, perfect, perfect. All right, so relax, do it again. All right, so now, all right, so right now, your brain is controlling your arm and it's also controlling his arm. So go ahead and just do it one more time. All right, so that's perfect. So now, what would happen if I took over my control of your hand? And so just relax your hand. What happens? Nothing. Why not? Because the brain has to do it. Now you do it again. All right, that's perfect.
Most people in the world today know that a manipulation of man has been underway for decades, and that mind control is a fact of life in this day and age. The only issue most people have not figured out yet is how we are manipulated exactly, and how does the system they use work on us. To really understand it completely, you need to look at history. We have tried to do that at the bird's eye view, to look at an aerial shot of how they developed the science of mind control. We showed our viewers that electromagnetic energy, when directed at people, can alter health, emotions, and thoughts, and how EEG was the biggest breakthrough for this mind control scientist, since they could then link us to a computer. We talked about how these energy weapons were developed, and we talked about MKUltra's history. We broke down how AI, cybernetics, and transhumanism are all products of this bigger and bigger tool for mass total control in our Points of Control series. Today, we go a few steps further by revealing a book called Matrix Deciphered by Duncan Williams. This is the bird's eye view, and here's what you've been missing. So today we go a couple steps further in our our research on mind control. This book was given to us by someone who passed it on to us. This is the book Matrix Deciphered by Robert Duncan. And he claims to have been, and I'm pretty sure he was, a scientist for the CIA. He comes straight out of Harvard. He has a long line of degrees. He worked on many, many projects that had to do with mind control and NSA type surveillance weapons and technology. And he eventually died, okay? They were basically using they used the mind control apparatuses on him, and this is why he could talk about it in such detail and from a scientific point of view as well. So I believe he's very legit in what he's saying. And he broke down things that have since come out, but this book came out in 2006, and I believe he was one of the main whistleblowers who blew the lid on things like Tammy, Satan, and mind, which is like hive mind, right? So, and specifically he exposes the EEG heterodyning tool, right? And we're going to get into all of that. So now we get to talk about the tactics that have been used on the American people specifically. He exposed these tools, and it's ironic that these tools came out in 1976, which was actually the year I was born, so I find that pretty crazy. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a 3-part series about this book, breaking down the different tools they use, the methods they use, the types of things they want us to think and believe, and we get down to more of the science of how it's working. And that is going to be done in a 3-part series. And today we are going to talk about the basics, which is what are the tools they're using and the timeline for a takeover. And make no mistake, they're working towards a complete takeover of our free will. That is what they're working on, have been diligently working on. And that's why all of this has come to be. So in our first video, we will talk about the systems they have, and we'll talk about their timeline for taking over. He states here, quote, "While I was able to trace back bioelectromagnetic mind reading and influencing experiments on the masses to 1976, the technology is actually much older than that when viewed through the media programming to the masses. Aliens, psychic control, and synthetic telepathy appeared on TV frequently in a popular show called The Outer Limits. These were produced and aired in 1963. The same year that Kennedy was assassinated. Kennedy gave a speech at Columbia University 10 days before he was shot. At that event, he alluded to an anonymous conspiracy and said that he must alert the American people. Quote, "The high office of the president has been used to foment a plot to destroy America's freedom, and before I leave this office, I must inform the citizens of their plight." From John F. Kennedy's statement made in Columbia University, November 12, 1963. So how did Kennedy find out about the mind control radar and the plot to control every human brain on the planet with this giant's ionospheric heaters? I believe his generals had to tell him because the Pay of Pigs fiasco. Why were nuclear missiles that close to the U.S. such a threat? They had no way at the time to stop missiles from other directions anyway. It was because Russia knew where the U.S. had built its first horizon radar system. It was stationed in Puerto Rico and completed in 1959. By placing the radar system outside of the continental U.S. at more than 20 degrees angle from zenith, the radar system bounces its signals off the ionosphere and can observe the continental U.S. But for what purpose? The Russians got the same mind reading and influencing research from the Nazi scientists, so they knew what it was for. They had to explain to President Kennedy that the Russians had placed nuclear missiles in Cuba because it was within 20 degrees zenith and out of range of the radar system. It was too close. The obvious question is to ask, why would you build a radar system outside of the U.S.? Kennedy was rightfully and obviously very disturbed by this plot to spy and control U.S. citizens through their brain's electrical activity, and being one of the last great presidents with honor and integrity this country has ever had, he was going to inform the people that the country had been taken over by a military. Since then, the power-addicted idiots have plunged the hole and built many large phased arrays in Colorado, Alaska, Massachusetts, and Brazil, just to name a few. Okay, you get a feel for what they're doing now, right? So they need these ionospheric heaters, which is radar, to read people's electromagnetic pulses, and they can then transcribe that just like Norbert Wiener did, putting his thoughts into a computer. Now the countdown. Quote, "As with all past human experimentations involving biological weapons, assassinations, radiation, or other tools, a cooling down period is required before discovery and reporting. The lifelong torture and mind control experiments have reached the end of their projected timeline. That means in another 5 to 10 years, they will stop them on all the victims so that they will die off, and there will be fewer citizens that will be demanding compensation. Currently, if they had to pay out $1 million to each victim, it would cost the United States easily $10 billion. It is simply a matter of economics that human effects testing weapons is done in this way." So, they want to, before they let out that they're doing all of this or have the capability of doing all this, because if you notice, our government slowly lets things out through the Patriot Act, because they have to slowly let this technology come out more and more because they can't hold it back forever, but they don't want those people around who can sue them for what they've done. They're smart. Now, let's talk about the cognitive modeling and the timeline for the takeover. So they have a very clear plan here. This biocommunication weapon came over with the Nazi scientists in 1945. President Truman signs the National Security Act in 1947 to create the CIA. The CIA begins a long streak of crimes against citizens of the world, and they continue the horrific Nazi agenda of world domination, all based on this new biofield modulation discovery. The cataloging and cloning operations of minds has never slowed down, grabbing hundreds of thousands of new minds each year, at least reported by those who figured it out. The Russians were infected with the same Nazi ideas as well from their share of Nazi scientists who gave them the technology after World War II. In 1960, the United States was put under an ionospheric heater surveillance grid, and the MIND, which is all capitals MIND, was fully working in 1976. The system TAMI was born, followed by Satan, SANTAN. In 1990, HARP came online with even greater capabilities for putting more of the world under ionospheric heating surveillance and biocommunication control, nearly completing the global human surveillance grid. There is still time to stop the most abominable weapon ever conceived by humankind. They are still perfecting the artificial intelligence software for automated torture and sentence stimulation that imprisons your thoughts, possibly through brain entrainments, apart from forced EEG heterodyning with some psychic Department of Defense morons. Okay, so as you can see from that last section, HARP is just an extension of what they started with, right? And it's all about controlling us through EEG heterodyning, which we'll get into exactly what that means. So let's talk about now, what is the system they created? Here it is. So how is it possible? Most people can't escape their erroneous intuitive sense of the world. Mathematics is the language of truth. As Richard Feynman said, if you aren't deeply disturbed by quantum mechanics, you clearly haven't understood it. So what they created were three things. Well, there's probably more than three, but these were the three main things using this technology that they had. One is TAMI, the other one is MIND, and the last one is Satan. They also have another one called Tempest, which is actually more well known. So Tempest is well known in the defense industry and is still in effect. It is a standard known to determine how much electromagnetic shielding is needed to thwart an attempt at reading the energy from monitors, TVs, or computers at a distance and reconstructing the information. This is the Tempest standard for military labs. Many have offered insight into what it might stand for. The best one I found is the electric magnetic probability estimate of safe threshold for undetectability. These standards change with technology, and guesses estimate on what security or sensitivity other countries have implemented. More satellites or bigger dishes, the more stringent the Tempest standards need to be. MIND is an acronym for a top-secret project of electromagnetic mind control. It stands for Magnetic Integrated Neuron Duplicators. This is just a fancy phrase for the name EEG cloning. TAMI stands for Thought Amplifier and Mind Interface. It seems to be a second-generation system built on top of MIND. The acronym for the kill mode weaponized software of the technology is SATAN, Silent Assassination Thought Amplified Neurons. While the CIA has a whole bag of tricks to metastasize people, the drugs can leave traces of metabolic residue or signatures of damage that can leave in the body and brain. So Satan has become the preferred method of silent assassinations in the agencies with the best plausible denial rating. So, all of these tools made from the EEG heterodyning method is essentially, and this is in the simplest of terms, it is like, like sonar maps what's out there, okay? It's doing the same thing, but mapping people's thinking. We'll get into what kind of thoughts come up more on the radar so they can hone in on certain people better. And the other thing that we found out is what they're doing is EEG cloning. So when they say EEG cloning, they are mimicking your thoughts into a computer, and then they're pushing them back on you, so you start to feel like basically crazy, and that is how they control people. So maybe you were not going to make the choice to eat that hamburger, but you're in your mind, you're going, should I have a hamburger or a hot dog? And maybe they force that down to you, eat the hamburger. Like, I'm just using the simplest way, but you get what I'm saying, right? They want to link so closely with your thoughts that you cannot tell the difference. It's like having a parasite in your system. You think that you're making all your own decisions, but you have something that is inside of you that's become almost part of your body. You cannot tell it's there. That is what EEG heterodyning is. And that's what they're using these things for. Now they have a weaponized version, which is Satan, and then they have other ones which are Mind, Tammy, and the other one was Mind, Tammy, and I think that was it, right? Mind, Tammy, and Satan. Oh, and the last one, Tempest, which is just a way to block this system that they created from having it be done to them, because obviously Russia's got it, China's got it, all these other countries have the same technology, so they got to block that from taking their information in, right? So I mean, you have state secrets, right? You're gonna have to protect yourself. So Tempest is the system that protects them. Tammy, Mind, and Satan are what they use on the public. Now, my understanding is they can't use it on everyone because they don't have enough juice to do it. They can't keep everybody's minds in a computer because it takes so much space. And that's why quantum computers and AI are their solution to the problem of being able to store and control people. So, you see where this is all going. So now we're going to talk about how it works. How does this work? All right, check this out. Quote, sociopaths both occur naturally from childhood traumas, genetics, or life experience affecting people in unpredictable ways. Of interest to the CIA and some military divisions with assassins is how to create them. How can a Manchurian candidate or programmed assassin be created by the question of MKUltra mind control experts help the answer? I will link his book completely, of course. You guys can grab it and read it. I am literally just going over the highlights. He gets into a lot of detail, and it's pretty amazing. So the basic steps that they use, right? This is the basic steps. That they use in the extreme can be experienced in milder forms such as boot camp, in the military, or in cults. Remember I said cults, military? That's why they pick these guys for MKUltra. The only new twist is the horrific acts of experiments and brutality to children and others destined by the corrupt elements in the government to perform as programmed assassinations on command is that MKUltra programming can now be done completely wireless using Tammy and various neural programming techniques. Less evidence, fewer memories, and more plausible denial makes it a great leap forward for the MKUltra mind control chuckleheads who operate the system and who undoubtedly program using similar techniques. So what they're saying is, in the 60s and 70s, they were physically messing with people. These MKUltra slaves had to be in the lab, being taken from their homes, and then they wouldn't remember what happened. And there's a lot of kids like that. I had a friend who recently came to me and said she's starting to have memories of this type of stuff. SRA abuse is just another form of MKUltra programming to make someone into an assassin. With horrific abuse, and people know this part of your brain can get split, and you start having a split personality. So you're compartmentalizing the two things that are happening, your regular life and then the horrible abuse, because you really can't handle it. And in doing that, you then become programmable. And that's really what they're going for. This is how the mind melding works, okay? This is how they do it. EEG cloning, mind melding is what they call it, is a synchronizing of brain waves, has been known for half a century. The German Nazi scientists conducted countless brutal medical dissections on Jews. Not only were the Nazis close to building an atomic bomb, but from these experiments they figured out how to control the human mind with just electromagnetic energy. These scientists were divided up between the Russians and the US after World War II. They were brought over to the United States under Project Paperclip. For their loyalty, they were forgiven their war crimes. The US and USSR began a new arms race. The first population-wide system came online between 1953 and 1960. These systems are often guised as over-the-horizon radar or ionospheric research projects. And this is a quote, any sufficiently advanced technology will appear like magic to a lesser technically advanced civilization. And that was from Isaac Asimov. So the basic mode first discovered was a simple amplification of brainwaves. There are a couple patents that describe this in detail at the patent office, but feeding back EEG like wave form into the same brain, one amplifies thoughts. There are two types of brain amplification. One amplifies the synaptic modulation, and the other amplifies brain entrainments. Example, inducing more neurons to join a firing group at each pass or presentation of a stimuli. This is apparent for the project acronyms Tammy and Satan. In this mode, one experiences sounds louder, visions are brighter, and ADD, attention deficit disorder, like conditions. It also leads to a paranoid schizophrenic condition over time. It is a good way to incapacitate a target, as the military literature describes. In patents that define this system, they use directed microwaves. But what happens if instead you amplify one person's EEG signals by some method into another person's brain? That person would begin to think like that person whose brainwaves are being cloned into him. They, in fact, by all intensive purposes, become one person to a greater extent. I'll leave the philosophy of this up to others. These people who have done this to them by choice or force are called psychics. In the EEG hive mind, while with equal weighting amongst all the participants, you have a severe problem with multifocal of attention, creating attention deficit disorder-like symptoms. By reconfiguring the hive mind into a tree-like structure of EEG frequency, the shared brain waves are more manageable. Also, after spending a lot of time adapting to each other's thoughts, there is less mental conflict. However, as a weapon, the tactic of diverting a thought of a target can be extremely useful in controlling their decisions or actions. So that is how these devices work, and I can say that this has probably happened to so many people. So you can imagine, this book, written in 2006, what do they have now? So EEG heterodyning and all these things are either you're getting thoughts from other people's minds, so something like pedophilia. You were never a pedophile before, but all of a sudden you start to have the tendencies. Where did that come from? Maybe transgenderism, and I'm going to step on the wild side here. Transgenderism is probably exactly what's happening to these young people. And you notice it's specifically young people. These are kids. In my last video, I talked about transhumanism. These are the digital natives that they talk about that are already hyperlinked to computers. So how much easier is it to control them? That's a lot. Who's running around outside our door right now rioting and freaking out for no apparent reason? And I'm sorry, but could it be possible that they're being pushed to do so? I think they are. So that's what we're going to stop for right now. Those are the three things I wanted to share. How they did it, what are they using, and how it works. Now in the second video we're going to talk about the mind control tactics that they use, because even if they can merge your mind with another person's mind, you know, you can still resist whatever they're pushing on you, right? So you still have things that they have to, psychologically, they have to mess with you in order for you to accept certain things, to do certain things, or to behave a certain way. So it gets pretty deep. In the next video, we'll talk about that. I hope you guys learned something today. I've been learning a ton. It's been clearing out a lot of questions I had. I've been comparing it with other research. So I do think he's pretty spot on. I'm going to link the book. But I hope you'll join me for the next two episodes, because we're going to break down some more about, like I said, mind control tactics. And then the third and fourth video, we are going to cover information warfare and how they use it. And then the last one we will talk about, in the last video, we're going to talk about their real agenda, because they're pretty specific. I think we know their real agenda, but we're going to talk a bit more about it and how do we resist it when we see. And the other thing we're going to talk about is the myths that were sponsored by the military. So there's a lot of things out there that they want us to believe. We've been programmed to believe these things. And in so doing that, we've given our power over to them. And then we're also going to talk about the things that the intelligence agencies do not want us to know about. So we've got two things: what they want you to know, what they don't want you to know. And we're going to talk about that in our last video. So I hope you guys will join me. Thank you so much for watching. This is the Bird's Eye View. Hope to see you next time.